I sponsored my best friend, Chloe Taylor, who came from a really tough background through college. I even helped her become a teacher at a private school. She'd always been incredibly grateful, saying I was the most important person in her life. Until one day when I was helping Chloe fix her laptop, I saw the photos inside. Chloe and my fiancé, Ethan Carter, were sitting side by side on a ski lift. She was snuggled up on his shoulder during a late-night movie. They were kissing in a sunset on a tropical island. I'd been so swamped with hospital work, constantly postponing our dates. Turns out, she'd gone on all of them for me. There were even their Snapchat messages from today. Ethan had sent, "She's sleeping at the hospital tonight, so bring a few extra boxes of condoms when you come over, baby." My hand trembled as I closed the laptop. I grabbed my car keys and sped all the way to our shared apartment, the place we called our wedding home. The moment I pushed open the door, the heavy scent of smoke and something else, something cloying and intimate, hung in the air. The two on the bed didn't even have time to pull apart. Chloe saw me first. She shrieked, her face going white as a sheet. "Sophie." Ethan turned, glanced at me, and instinctively shielded her behind him. The clothes and wrappers scattered all over the floor made me freeze in disbelief, forgetting to even breathe. I just stood there, watching Ethan pick up the clothes from the floor, helping Chloe dress, piece by piece. His movements were practiced and gentle. He walked her to the door, whispering reassurance. "Someone's waiting downstairs for you. I'll handle everything." I hadn't done anything yet, but he already feared I'd lash out like a madwoman. The spot in my chest felt hollow, like everything had been ripped out. Only he and I remained in the room, facing each other. I stared at the face I'd known since childhood. We were childhood sweethearts, knew each other for over 20 years. He always said he'd be my shadow, always follow me. But now, that face looked utterly foreign. Ethan pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one, took a drag, then looked at me. "Don't you have anything to say?" He was the one who cheated, so why was I the one standing here, helpless and questioned? "Ethan, how could you two do this to me?" He flicked the ash from his cigarette, his tone flat. "I admit I messed up. But Sophie, genuinely, what have you given me these past few years? You always have something to do, a surgery scheduled. I ask you out to dinner, you're on rounds. I ask you to a movie, you're on call. I even had to schedule a fight with you 3 days in advance." He said these words with a hint of grievance. As if I were the one in the wrong. As if I were the one who cheated. "Chloe's different." His voice softened when he mentioned Chloe. "She cares about my feelings. She remembers what I say. She'll do the things I want to do with me. All those dates you missed, she went on them with me. In her heart, I'm the priority." Every word was a knife, twisting in my heart, leaving me numb with pain. "Ethan, you've known me my whole life. I've always been this way. I haven't changed one bit." He frowned, as if I were being unreasonable. "Yeah, you haven't changed. But I'm tired of waiting." I heard my own voice trembling. "So you slept with my best friend?" He was silent for 2 seconds. "I told you it's not her fault." I took a deep breath and walked over. My palm connected hard with Ethan's face. "You're truly heartless, Ethan. How could you do this to me?" He didn't dodge. The cigarette dropped from his fingers, sparks landing on the duvet. He looked up, a flicker of emotion finally in his eyes. "Enough? If not, do it again. Once you've vented, don't go looking for trouble with Chloe." I opened my mouth to say something, but my phone suddenly rang. It was the hospital. "Dr. Miller, surgery starts in half an hour." Ethan let out a soft laugh. It was quiet, but it pierced my ears like a needle. "Go on, Dr. Miller. Your fiancé is sleeping with your best friend, and you still have to go perform surgery. You really are the most tolerant woman I've ever met." I gripped my phone, my knuckles white. Fearing tears, I turned and walked away. The surgical lights were blinding. I gritted my teeth, forcing back the tears, my hand steady with the scalpel. No one could tell that just half an hour ago, I'd seen my fiancé and my best friend intimately in my own bed. When the surgery ended, my wrist ached so much I could barely lift it. "Dr. Miller, congratulations are in order." The anesthesiologist, charting notes, smiled. "I heard you're taking 6 months off for your wedding? Everyone in the department is saying that Dr. Carter, who sends you a bouquet every day, is finally marrying our ice queen Dr. Miller." My grip on the paper cup tightened instantly. For these 6 months of leave, I'd used all my accumulated vacation days and scheduled every possible surgery in advance. I'd get so exhausted I'd faint from low blood sugar in the changing room, then pick myself up, chug a glucose drink, and go right back to it. Ethan came to pick me up that day, and when he saw my pale lips, he actually frowned. "Can't you be a little kinder to yourself?" I smiled. "Are you worried about me, Dr. Carter?" He pulled me into his arms. "Sophie, I just want to marry you, take you home, and put you on a pedestal." Now looking back, his arms had already embraced someone else. All my efforts these past months were nothing but a joke. MHM. I managed only one word, afraid that another would trigger my collapse. I walked into the changing room. The moment the door locked, I slid down the door panel to the floor. My shoulders shook violently, tears streaming endlessly through my fingers. I could never shake Ethan off, not since we were kids. He was like my shadow, always tagging along wherever I went. When I was 9, I snapped impatiently. "Can you stop following me?" He looked down and said, "I want to be your shadow. Wherever you go, I go." At 18, he handed me a note. "I don't want to be a shadow anymore. I want to stand beside you." We started dating. From 18 to 28, a full 10 years, he kept every promise. He always picked me up when I worked late. He took time off to care for me when I was sick. He remembered every word I said. Everyone said this was love at its best. I believed them. I pulled out my phone and saw a message from Chloe, sent 2 hours ago. "Sophie, I know I've wronged you, but I truly love him. I'll do anything you want. Just let us be okay?" I stared at the words and suddenly found it hilarious. Chloe probably didn't even remember how she'd gotten out of that miserable, dead-end town she came from. That year, her grandma was critically ill, no money for hospital bills. Chloe knelt in the hospital corridor, sobbing uncontrollably, tears and snot streaming down her face. I was the one who paid for her surgery, arranged everything. I was the one who paid her tuition, encouraged her to get her teaching license. She said I was her biggest benefactor, saying, "Sophie Miller, you're the one person I'll never betray in my life." But now, she was sleeping with my fiancé and asking me to bless their love. But who would bless my 10 years of youth? The phone screen blurred. I wiped my tears, ready to stand up. Just then, I heard nurses talking outside the door. "Did you hear? We got a patient in the ER, pregnant, had intense sex and hemorrhaged. The baby's okay, but her husband looks really powerful. When he came in, he said if we couldn't save the baby, he'd shut down the hospital. No wonder rich people are so arrogant." That's not the point. The point is, the guy looks exactly like Dr. Miller's fiancé. Oh my God, she's pregnant. Is Dr. Miller like the other woman? The footsteps faded away. I leaned against the door, my body ice cold. My nails dug deep into my palms, drawing blood. I pushed the door open abruptly and rushed out. Through the glass window of the patient's room, I saw them. Ethan's voice was gentle, like he was comforting a child. "Drink slowly, it's hot." I pushed open the door. Chloe saw me first. "So Sophie." Ethan turned, and the moment he saw me, he instinctively shifted, shielding Chloe behind him. He'd made the same move just a few hours ago in our apartment. His voice turned cold. "I told you not to bother her." I stared at Chloe's flat stomach. Pregnant. Chloe's tears fell, and she turned her face away, not daring to look at me. "Yes," Ethan answered for her. "It's mine. 3 months. 3 months. 3 months ago, Ethan went on a business trip, and there was an unexpected earthquake. Messages, calls all went unanswered. I took leave overnight and drove there. Halfway, an aftershock hit. I was thrown forward, my stomach hitting the steering wheel. The child I hadn't even had a chance to tell anyone about was gone in that chaos. When Ethan arrived, he knelt by my bed, holding me, his voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Sophie. We'll have another child, I promise we will." It was the first time I'd seen him cry. I stroked his hair and said, "As long as you're safe, we'll have more." Turns out he wasn't on a business trip at all. He was with Chloe. They conceived a child at that time. And I, on my way to find him, lost our child. "Sophie." Chloe's voice pulled me back to reality. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she looked utterly pathetic. "The baby can't grow up without a dad. Please let us be." Smack. My palm connected hard with her face. The patient room fell silent for a moment. Then Chloe covered her face and began to cry. Ethan shot up, grabbing my wrist. "Sophie Miller. That's enough. Take it out on me." His eyes were filled with rage. In 20 years, I could count the times he'd gotten angry with me on one hand. Each time it was because I worked too hard, neglecting my own body. But now it was for the woman he cheated with. "Take it out on you? Ethan, do you even deserve it?" I yanked my hand free and stepped back. Something slipped out of my pocket and clattered to the floor. It was a tactical knife. Ethan and I both froze. 3 years ago, on the day he proposed, he slid the ring onto my finger, then put a knife in my hand. "Sophie Miller, you're the only one for me forever. If I ever betray you, use this knife and stab me through the heart." I looked down at the knife, my head buzzing. Then I bent down and picked it up. In that moment, a massive wave of resentment and fury surged from my chest, making my eyes burn. I really wanted to plunge it in. I wanted to press the tip against his heart and ask him why, and how dare he. I wanted him to hurt, to taste the feeling of being stabbed in the back by the one he loved most. Chloe screamed, spreading her arms to shield Ethan. "Sophie, it's my fault, not his." I gripped the knife and took a step toward them. Just one step. Ethan's expression changed. He yanked Chloe behind him, then raised his hand and pushed me. I went flying across the room. My head hit the tiled floor with a sickening thud, and my ears were ringing. When my vision returned, I saw him holding Chloe tightly in his arms. His voice was soft, so gentle. "Did I hit your stomach?" Chloe shook her head, crying. He never once looked at me. The hallway was filled with people. "Oh my God, is that Dr. Miller? She looks so miserable." Dr. Miller usually seems so calm. Why is she acting like a maniac? I lay on the floor, my head throbbing. When I was 8, my mother left me with my alcoholic and abusive father. I knelt on the floor, clutching her hand, demanding to know why, crying until I fainted. Since then, I had never broken down for anyone. I didn't cry when a surgery failed, nor when I lost my child. It was Ethan who slowly, painstakingly, chipped away at that protective shell. He spent 20 years making me believe I could also be cherished. But it was also him who turned me back into a maniac. I pushed myself up, opened the door and walked out. It's okay. I only have myself, and that's enough. Back at my desk, the whispers around me were constant, but I didn't listen. On my desk lay the approved wedding leave form and an application for an overseas assignment. 2 months ago, my head of department had discussed it with me, saying it was a great opportunity, and I'd be promoted to deputy head upon my return. When I told Ethan the news, he smiled. "Sophie Miller, I support all your decisions." He pulled me into his arms, resting his chin on my head. "No matter how far you go, I'll always wait for you, always follow you." I couldn't bear to leave Ethan, couldn't bear to let down his years of waiting. So, I submitted the wedding leave form. My head of department, though reluctant, approved it. "You two have been together for 10 years. Choosing marriage over an overseas assignment is a good decision. I hope he doesn't let you down." Now his words had become a cruel prophecy. I tore up the approved form and threw it into the trash can. Slowly, deliberately, I filled out the deployment application form. The moment I finished, I suddenly felt like I could finally breathe. Chloe's laptop was still there. I clicked on her Snapchat, taking screenshots of everything. Her feed was full of posts. Photos of her and Ethan in the snow, hands intertwined at the movie theater, lavish dinners at couples' restaurants. Every single post was hidden from me. Mutual friends in the comments section were egging them on. "OMG, you two are so cute. Just get married already." Ethan's such a legend. Even when his fiancé's cold to him, he's got a girlfriend to comfort him. Wonder what Sophie's reaction will be. She's always so serious, I'd love to see her cry. So everyone knew. Only I was just a fool, completely in the dark. Made a fool of, a complete joke to everyone. It was past midnight when I returned to the apartment Ethan and I shared. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Once I finished, I grabbed my phone and called a real estate agent, intending to sell our wedding home. "Okay, ma'am, is the property title in your name?" "Yes." When we moved in, Ethan said he'd only put my name on the title, so I'd always feel secure. I pulled the property title from the drawer and opened it. My hand froze. The owner's name, at some point, had been changed to Chloe Taylor. Even our wedding home he'd given to her. "Ms. Miller, are you in a rush to sell?" It took me a long time to respond, my voice hoarse, like sandpaper. "Sorry, I'm not selling anymore." I hung up, stuffed the last few items of clothing into my suitcase, zipped it up, stood and looked around. I'd lived in this apartment for 3 years. I picked out the sofa, chose the curtains, and Ethan had custom ordered the painting on the wall from overseas. He said, "When we get married, this wall will be covered with our photos." The photo of us was still hanging there. He had his arm around me, his eyes crinkled in a smile. It was taken 3 years ago, on the first day we moved in. He'd been so excited, spinning me around. "Sophie Miller, from today on, we have a home." I'd lived here for 3 years. In the end, not a single brick in this place was truly mine. I reached up and took down the photo frame, opened it, pulled out the photo. On the back was a line of his handwriting. "No matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you. Ethan Carter." I threw the photo into the trash can. Dragging my suitcase, I closed the door. A few days later, my overseas assignment was approved, London. Ethan sent a Snapchat message. "Sophie Miller, Chloe's pregnant. I have to take responsibility. I'm giving the marriage certificate to Chloe, but the wedding can still go on as planned. I won't go back on my word. I'll still give you the most magnificent wedding." I stared at that message for a long time. He wanted me to be his mistress and Chloe his wife. How laughable. I didn't reply. I opened my laptop and exported all those photos. One by one, I packaged and printed them. Recipient addresses. The school where Chloe taught, the Carter family residence, Carter Industries. Having done everything, I picked up my suitcase and headed straight for the airport. Before boarding, my phone suddenly vibrated. Messages flooded in like a broken dam. The cabin pressure in the Boeing 777 transition felt like a physical weight, pressing against Sophie's temples. As the aircraft taxied down the runway of the airport, she reached into her pocket, pulled out her SIM card and dropped it. into the small plastic cup of lukewarm water on her tray table. It sank to the bottom, the copper contacts turning dull under the cabin lights. She did not look back. Behind her, thousands of miles away, a series of timed deliveries were about to land. The first package arrived at the St. George Private Academy at exactly 9 a.m. The receptionist, recognizing the urgent red courier stamp, immediately sent it up to the headmaster's office. Inside was a neatly bound dossier. It contained high-resolution printouts of Chloe's private Snapchat stories, the ones she had painstakingly hidden from Sophie, alongside hotel receipts, flight itineraries, funded by Sophie's joint credit card with Ethan, and a detailed timeline of how Chloe had used her sick leave from the academy to go on tropical vacations with her benefactor's fiancé. To ensure there was no room for ambiguity, Sophie had included a copy of the school's own morality clause, which Chloe had signed when Sophie's personal recommendation had secured her the position. By 10:30 a.m., Chloe was called into the administrative wing. She never returned to her classroom. Her personal belongings were packed into 2 cardboard boxes and left by the security gate. The second and third packages were delivered simultaneously to the Carter family estate and the executive suite of Carter Industries. Ethan's father, Arthur Carter, was a man who valued reputation above all else. When he opened the thick manila envelope during a board meeting, his face turned from pale to an angry, mottled violet. The folder didn't just contain evidence of Ethan's infidelity, it contained a forensic audit of the wedding home's title transfer. Sophie had not simply cried and run away. Before heading to the airport, she had spent 3 hours with a trusted real estate attorney. The transfer of the property title to Chloe Taylor had been executed using a forged signature of Sophie's name, a forgery Ethan had facilitated through a corrupt notary contact. Arthur Carter slammed the folder onto the mahogany table. "Get Ethan in here," he instructed his secretary, his voice trembling with a quiet, lethal rage. Now. London in late autumn was a study in monochromatic grays. Sophie stepped out of Heathrow Airport and was greeted by a biting chill that felt clean, sharp, and entirely devoid of the suffocating heat of her hometown. She checked into the modest flat provided by the Royal Free Hospital in Hampstead. It was small, smelling faintly of lavender polish and old wood, but it was hers. There were no custom-ordered paintings, no empty promises written on the back of photo frames, and no lingering scent of cheap perfume and cigarettes. The next morning, she integrated herself into her new department. The chief of surgery, Dr. Alastair Vance, was a seasoned practitioner who valued precision and silence. "I read your file, Dr. Miller," Vance said, looking over his spectacles during their first briefing. "Your record is exemplary, though your department head back home mentioned you've been working at an unsustainable pace. Here we expect excellence, but we also expect our surgeons to survive. Do you understand?" "I do, Dr. Vance," Sophie replied, her voice steady. "I am here to work." And work she did. The operating theaters in London became her sanctuary. When she held the scalpel, her hands did not shake. The chaos of her personal life was locked behind a heavy steel door in her mind. In the quiet hours of the night, when the silence of her flat threatened to let the memories slip through, she would study complex cardiovascular cases, memorizing anatomical variations, until she fell asleep from sheer mental exhaustion. She bought a new phone, registering it under a business contract with a private number. She only shared it with the hospital and her legal counsel back home, Mr. Harrison. 3 weeks into her stay, she received her first email from Mr. Harrison. "Dear Sophie, the wheels of justice are turning, albeit loudly. Arthur Carter's legal team contacted me yesterday. They are desperate to settle the matter of the forged deed quietly. Ethan is facing criminal charges for document fraud, and the notary who authorized the transfer has already had their license revoked. Ethan has tried to contact me multiple times, begging for your new number. I have refused. Chloe Taylor has filed for unfair dismissal against the school, but the board rejected it instantly, citing the evidence of moral turpitude. She is currently staying at a cheap motel near the outskirts of the city, as Arthur Carter has barred her from entering any Carter-owned properties. Please let me know how you wish to proceed with the property settlement. Best regards, Robert Harrison, ESQ." Sophie read the email twice. She felt a faint, distant thrum in her chest, but it wasn't satisfaction. It was merely the cold validation of a mathematical equation being solved. She typed a brief reply. "Proceed with the full criminal charges regarding the forgery. Do not settle. Let the law take its course." Back home, the apartment that was supposed to be a wedding home had become a pressure cooker of resentment. Without Sophie's financial contributions, and the social standing her family's medical legacy provided, Ethan found himself stripped of his executive privileges at Carter Industries. His father had demoted him to a minor regional supervisor role, cutting his salary by 2/3. You ruined this family's name for a schoolteacher who couldn't even keep her hands to herself. Arthur Carter had roared at him during a family dinner. Sophie Miller was worth 10 of you, and you threw her away for a cheap distraction. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed in the half-packed apartment. The space felt cramped now, cluttered with Chloe's cheap makeup organizers, baby formula, pamphlets, and the constant, oppressive smell of burnt toast. Chloe sat on the sofa, her eyes red and swollen. Her pregnancy, which had once felt like a golden ticket, had become a physical and emotional burden. Without Sophie's financial support, she had no access to the private obstetricians she had envisioned. She was nauseous, exhausted, and terrified. Ethan, Chloe whimpered, her voice grating on his raw nerves. The lawyer said, if we don't return the title to Sophie's name, the police will issue a warrant for your arrest. We have to do something. Can't you ask your father for a loan? Ethan turned to her, his eyes devoid of the warmth he had once displayed. My father won't even take my calls, Chloe. And the only reason I'm in this mess is because you insisted on having a house with your name on it before the baby was born. I did it for our future, she cried, defending herself. You said you loved me. You said Sophie was cold and didn't care about you. Sophie didn't forge my signature. Ethan spat, standing up and grabbing his jacket. Sophie didn't lose her job within 24 hours of her dirty secrets being exposed. She was a respected surgeon. You can't even look after yourself without her money. The realization was a slow, agonizing poison. Chloe had been appealing because she was easy, needy, and always available. But that availability was a product of her having nothing else to do. Sophie's busy schedule, her dedication, and her intellect, the very things Ethan had complained about, were the pillars that had supported his comfortable life. Without Sophie, he was just a mediocre man drowning in a sea of his own poor choices. For months past, Sophie's life in London had taken on a quiet, beautiful rhythm. She had joined a local rowing club on the Thames, her skin gaining a healthy color from the brisk morning air. Her colleagues respected her, and Dr. Vance had already hinted at a permanent consulting role at the end of her 6-month deployment. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, as she walked out of the hospital's main entrance, she saw a figure standing near the red telephone kiosk across the street. He wore a dark wool coat, his collar turned up against the drizzle. He looked thinner than she remembered, his shoulders slightly hunched, his eyes shadowed with fatigue. It was Ethan. Sophie stopped. For a fleeting second, her heart rate spiked, a remnant of a 20-year habit. But as she looked at him, the panic subsided, replaced by a profound, hollow stillness. He saw her and stepped forward, his hands trembling as he pulled them from his pockets. Sophie, Ethan, she said, her voice even. What are you doing here? I flew in yesterday, he said, his voice cracking. I went to the hospital registry. They wouldn't give me your address, so I just waited here. I've been waiting for 6 hours. You shouldn't have come. Please, Sophie, just 5 minutes. Just let me speak to you. She looked at the cafe across the street. It was public, bright and crowded. 5 minutes, she said. They sat at a small corner table. The scent of roasted coffee beans and damp coats filled the air. Ethan reached across the table, trying to grasp her hand. But Sophie calmly placed both of her hands in her lap, out of his reach. His hand hovered in the air for a second before dropping back to the wood. We settled the property, Ethan began, his eyes pleading. The title is back in your name. The charges. My father's lawyers managed to get them reduced to a misdemeanor, but I had to resign from Carter Industries. I'm working in logistics now, a small firm. I know, Sophie said. Mr. Harrison keeps me updated. Chloe had the baby last week, he whispered, as if the words physically hurt him. A boy. We named him Leo. But Sophie, it's not what I wanted. Every time I look at her, every time I'm in that house, I just think of you. I think of what we had for 20 years. Sophie looked at him. She looked at the fine lines around his eyes, the desperation in his posture. Ethan, she said softly, do you remember what you said to me the day I caught you? He looked down, unable to meet her gaze. You asked me what I had given you over the past few years, she continued, her voice devoid of anger, which made it far more devastating. You told me Chloe cared about your feelings, that she remembered what you said, that she made you her priority. I was stupid, he choked out, a tear spilling over his cheek. I was lonely and selfish. I didn't realize that your work, your dedication, that was your way of building a future for us. You were exhausted because you were trying to clear your schedule for our marriage. I see that now. I swear I do. It's too late to see it now, Sophie said. The tragedy of your choice isn't that you broke my heart, Ethan. It's that you destroyed the person I thought you were. The boy who promised to be my shadow. The man who stood beside me. He didn't exist. He was just a projection of my own loyalty. I can change, he begged, leaning forward. I'll leave her. I'll provide for the baby, but I'll leave her. We can stay here in London. I'll start over. I'll sweep floors if I have to, just to be near you again. Sophie let out a small, sad breath. If you leave Chloe now when she has no job, no money, and a newborn baby, the very baby you chose to have with her, you prove that you are exactly the coward I think you are. And if you stay with her while harboring resentment, you will make 3 people miserable instead of 2. She stood up, pulling her wool scarf tight around her neck. Sophie, please, Ethan sobbed, attracting quiet glances from the neighboring tables. Don't leave me like this. You've known me my whole life. I knew a version of you, she said, looking down at him one last time. And I've spent the last 4 months mourning him. But the man sitting in front of me now is a stranger. I hope you find a way to be a good father to your son, Ethan. But my life doesn't involve you anymore. She walked out of the cafe. As the glass door clicked shut behind her, she felt the cool London rain on her face. She didn't run. She walked with a steady, measured pace, her posture upright, her eyes focused on the street ahead. 2 years later, the lecture hall at the University College London was packed. Dr. Sophie Miller stood at the podium, presenting her latest research on minimally invasive pediatric cardiothoracic surgery. Her presentation was precise, eloquent, and met with a resounding round of applause from the international delegation. After the lecture, she walked out into the courtyard, where a tall, pleasant-faced man was waiting for her, holding 2 cups of hot cider. You were brilliant as usual, Dr. Vance said, handing her a cup. Thank you, Alistair, she smiled, taking a warm sip. It felt good to present the final data. They walked together toward the medical campus gates. Sophie's life was full. She had bought a small, beautiful townhouse in Richmond overlooking the river. Her garden was filled with white hydrangeas, and her home was filled with books, music, and the quiet peace of a life built entirely on her own terms. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was an email from Mr. Harrison. She opened it as they walked. Dear Sophie, I wanted to let you know that the sale of the apartment has officially closed. The funds have been wired to your designated charity account for pediatric surgery grants, per your instructions. As a final update, Chloe Taylor has moved back to her hometown with her child. From what I understand, she and Ethan separated 6 months ago. Ethan remains in his entry-level logistics role, paying child support. The Carter family has officially distanced themselves from both of them. I believe this concludes all matters under my purview. It has been an honor assisting you, Sophie. You have handled this with a grace few possess. Warmest regards, Robert Harrison. Sophie deleted the email. She locked her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. She looked up at the sky, where the afternoon sun was breaking through the clouds, casting a golden light over the historic stone buildings of the university. Everything all right? Alistair asked, noticing her brief pause. Yes, Sophie replied, her smile genuine, light, and entirely free of the shadows of the past. Everything is exactly as it should be.